So to lead things off, we have Heidi Bruckman, who's at the New York City Autism Charter School. She's a clinical supervisor, and she's going to be sharing her experience with Floreo. So we're really excited to hear her thoughts. Heidi?
Hi. Thank you so much for asking me to be here today about my experience working with Floreo. So yeah, my name is Heidi, and I am a clinical supervisor at a charter school in the Bronx. So for a little bit of history about who our school is, we are the first public charter schools in New York State, exclusively for children with autism, and we provide a specialized, no-cost education using principles of applied behavior analysis in a primarily one-to-one teacher-to-student ratio. We serve communities in East Harlem and in the South Bronx with programs that really work to foster social skills, community integration, and job readiness skills. Our entire aim is to empower students with autism and support families across New York City, particularly in neighborhoods and communities in need of autism-specific resources and supports. In both of our neighborhoods and communities, our families often face considerable socioeconomic challenges, which are challenges that can become even more heightened when a diagnosis of autism is involved. So we are really dedicated to serving the families in our local communities, and our admissions policy actually gives preference to children and families living within our community school district. So we really try and support, our own backyard. So for a little bit about my classroom and who's been using Floreo, I'm in my ninth school year here, and I am the clinical supervisor and head teacher of a reduced ratio classroom. So we have an 8:1 to 4 ratio, meaning 8 students, one certified special education teacher, who's me, and then 4 instructors. And while my school primarily serves students on the more significantly impacted end of the spectrum, who really aren't as represented in a more typical educational setting, my classroom is kind of like a little unicorn in our school of, students with slightly more sophisticated language, social, and academic skills who are really working on foundational skills and self-regulation skills through adaptive behavior to be able to move on to a less restrictive environment once they've spent some time with us. So the intersection of my class and all the things that Floreo is targeting for teaching has been really, really cool to see. So my students are incredible. They are my favorite people to spend my day with. However, they have a lot of challenges in their day-to-day lives. So developing these skills around social interaction and communication and community-based skills that can't be directly practiced in a school setting, but are imperative for safety, are really critical, but difficult for these kiddos to acquire in our really contained space. So this is where Floreo has come in to save us. It's been so cool. So I've been piloting the use of Floreo since the summer. And when I was asked to try out the technology with my class, I was nervous. I am not a person who knows a lot about the world of VR and have maybe played Fruit Ninja like one time on a friend's VR. And then I had to pass it off because I did not know what I was doing. But after experiencing Floreo, I'm not only nerve-free, but thrilled to keep engaging with this technology and harnessing it to help my students grow and participate in their community. So I primarily use it in social skills groups and quickly saw not only the value of the lessons, but also it as like a fun experience for students to see animals underwater or lions or things that they might not have experienced before. So, like I said, a few other classes at my school are probing the use of Floreo, but those are classrooms with our students who are more significantly impacted and might not have some of the language skills as necessary to benefit from all of the lessons. But in my reduced ratio room, we are using it. So um, I've definitely seen an increase in behavior in our actual day-to-day through the virtual practice. They're so excited, and this generalization of skills is really cool. So I'd love to just share a few student-specific stories because I feel like that's the most fun part about the specific skills we've been working on. So over the summer, I was working with a group of two students who were 9 and 10, who were preparing to transition to a less restrictive environment in September. So summer was really our graduation boot camp, and we were getting in all of the skills that they were going to need to practice in a new setting that wouldn't be as, safe bubble contained as this really, really special school that we have. So a lot of those skills were really hard to contrive, but incredibly important. For example, we don't have a cafeteria where students can practice initiating or joining in on an ongoing conversation, but Floreo has that. We don't have a hallway full of socially motivated students who independently greet one another in either friendly or unfriendly ways that you would need to differentiate how to respond. Floreo has that. And we also don't have a large group of students who can initiate, maintain, and expand on a wide variety of conversational topics independently without significantly scaffolded supports. And Floreo has that. So I've been able to remove myself from explaining or coaching two students through an interaction together where neither is really getting the full piece of what they need from learning those social skills, and instead introduce my students to other students like Ayana and Alejandro in the Floreo world, who can teach my students in a way that I can't. So with these two boys, I focused primarily on the social interactions lessons, joining conversations, the chit chat lessons, which were a fan favorite. They started to think of Ayana as a friend of theirs, and working on how to sit in a classroom and raise hands. So while we were working on one of the cafeteria-based lessons about joining in on a conversation, a student of mine who I had been teaching for almost 5 years and knew incredibly well, very little about this kiddo surprised me, asked me a question that did surprise me. And he said, "Hey, Heidi, how do I sit in the tables at the cafeteria? I don't understand." And I've been teaching for almost a decade with a specific focus on this cohort of learners bridging the gap between us and a more typical setting. And I had never thought to explicitly teach how you slide into one of those little benches attached to a cafeteria table. So through Floreo, the student was not only able to increase his social understanding of behavior in that setting, but also prompted us to do a real life visit to the cafeteria in our co-located schools to practice sliding into that table together. And I genuinely don't know that that would have dawned on me without those Floreo lessons, because we don't have a cafeteria at our school. We all eat, the 8 students at a group table in my classroom. So that was really funny. And now I have a little something in the back of my brain for the next time kids have to go to a cafeteria. With the same students, we also were working on raising your hand in a lesson. And the student specifically who loved this lesson was thrilled because you could raise your hand to answer questions about the solar system, which was his absolute passion. He actually asked us to call him Earth most days of the summer. So not only did he learn how to raise his hand in Floreo and to tolerate not being called on, because that was one of the hardest things. If he'd be like, "Okay, I raised my hand. Hello, call on me. I know the answer." But to learn that more nuanced skill of, even though you raised your hand, even though you know the answer, you might not get called on. And that conditional understanding was really challenging. But through Floreo, over the course of the summer, I saw an increase in him raising his hand throughout the day, in tolerating other kids getting to answer, and even kind of self-regulation, calming himself if he didn't get called on and saying, "Okay, it's okay. Maybe they'll call on me next time." And those self-regulation skills have set him up for more success in his school, which his mom has actually shared with me is going really well, which is why I do what I do. So one more student I want to share about is one of my current students, who's a 9-year-old girl who loves to chat with her teachers, but has historically been less excited to talk to other students, or communicates in a way that's just less understandable or easy to follow for other kiddos here or novel adults who just aren't as familiar with her and how she talks or what her sentence structure means. So she's new to my reduced ratio classroom and is also preparing for a hopeful transition. So this is a year of transition boot camp for her. And I use Floreo to focus on only social interactions pretty much with her, joining conversations, talking in the hallway, understanding facial expressions, all of that. When I put Talk to Ayana, which I've mentioned so many times, it's really my favorite lesson, it's incredible, on our session schedule, her face lights up and she asks me, what are we going to talk about with Ayana today? And every single time we use Floreo, I see an expansion of her language. So she's consistently using more complex language with teachers, with students, and with Ayana in the virtual setting. And while we, of course, still see some aversion to certain social interactions or classmates, we're also seeing progress. And her mom has actually also shared with me that little by little, they're seeing the same type of progress at home and in the community. For example, she just started participating in a confirmation type class at her church to prepare for baptism, which is a huge milestone for this family and something they've wanted. And because of her social deficits, she has not been able to participate in something like that with other kids before. So it's really unlocked a new level of social interaction for her. And Floreo has really just been the icing on the cake of my social skills groups to teach in a way that I just can't, but I can coach with them. So I really can't say enough how cool it's been to be a part of this and how grateful I am to Floreo. They've always been answering our questions and making modifications if something wasn't working. And I'm really excited to just keep enhancing my social skills lessons and seeing what more they come out with because it's been a really cool thing. So thank you to Floreo and thank you for having me today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Heidi.